How's it going, everybody? It's Riley's Redzone here, and in today's video, I will be predicting each Week 9 NFL game. This one might be a little bit shorter video as there are less games than usual. There are 6 teams on bye this week, which means 3 less games. So we're going to break down the other games, though, on the schedule with the rest of the teams. And currently, as I'm recording this, the Eagles-Texans game is going on right now. On my Twitter, I picked the Eagles. At the moment I'm currently speaking, they are winning by 4, but that could end up changing, but we'll see what happens on that pick. But once again, as mentioned in previous videos, any games that happen before Sunday usually, I will put on the Twitter, so I at least have the pick out, so I won't ever wait till after, but it's in a different spot. So most of the time you'll know by when I upload this video what the result of that pick was, but in this case I'm recording it early. But we're going to talk about the rest of the games now. So that game will, by the time this is uploaded, probably be decided. Now, let's talk about the rest of these games. Let's start with the Bills and the Jets. Bills are on fire. The Jets had a little bit of a winning streak going, and then Zach Wilson has started to struggle a little bit again. I have to go with the Bills here as they are, on paper, the best team in the league still. I have been saying that for the last few years. I've picked them in the last 3 times. I've done the whole playoff bracket. I've picked the Bills to win the Super Bowl. I think they still have a great shot this year. They're doing really, really well, and I think you just have to. I can't pick against them in this situation. The Packers and Lions. The Packers have not been performing up to the level I think that they would like to, but I think that against the Lions, they'll bounce back here, and it's not looking good for Dan Campbell, even though I like Dan Campbell. They just are not winning football games. I think it started the season at least too where they were losing, but at least they were keeping it close. They haven't been doing that either all of the time. Last week they did have a lead, and then they ended up losing it there. So I think the Packers have to bounce back here, although this could end up being a close one. It's at Detroit. I'm going to go with the Packers, though, here. My first upset of the week is going to be the Colts over the Patriots. I expect this to be a close one. This is technically an upset looking at the spread. I like to throw in a few upsets every week, and most of the time my upset picks end up being kind of feeling based, and that's one of them here. The Colts started with a big lead last week, and I actually thought I was going to I picked the Commanders, and I thought that pick was going to be wrong, but Taylor Heineke led his way back for a win. But Sam Ellinger, I think, showed enough that he can be the starter for the rest of the season. And I think that he can get a win this week. The Patriots, I think can also get a win here. I think that they also, definitely could. I can definitely see them winning this. I think this will be a very close one. I'm just going to go off of feeling base here. I think that the Colts get this win. I just feel like they were so close to getting one last week that they can pull it off this week, but that's a tough one. Then the Panthers and the Bengals. The Panthers have been actually performing pretty well given their situation of everyone thought they were kind of going to be tanking. They bring in the interim head coach. PJ Walker is playing out of his mind. I don't think it'll quite be enough against the Bengals, though, but I have to give the Panthers credit for what they have been doing. And although they didn't win this past week, they got about as close as you can get. But I think the Bengals will actually perform pretty well offensively. Their record, I feel like, does not accurately show where the Bengals will be by the end of the season. It reminds me of how they were last season. They were one of those teams I said in the playoff pick videos. If there was a team you didn't want to play in the playoffs, I think the Bengals were one of them, because I always want a team that's gaining momentum as the end of the season goes. I'd rather start slow and end fast than the other way around. So I think the Bengals get a win this week. I think they do really well offensively. Still no Jamar Chase, but with T. Higgins, they have enough on receivers and Tyler Boyd, and they have enough playmakers around there. Burrow can make it work. Vikings Commanders. Here's the thing. I think the Vikings eventually will run into a trap game. I know they play the Bills next week, in which on paper I definitely think they will lose. But I do think they will. It's weird because historically the Vikings will lose a game like last year they lost to the Lions. And kind of tied the Steelers like real close. And so they basically normally would lose a game like this. I feel like they historically will, in a big stretch of wins, there will be one game that you expect them to win, but they don't. But I have to say, the new coaching staff has been able to game manage surprisingly, maybe not surprisingly. I really liked O'Connell coming in here, but I should say for a rookie head coach, I have to give him absolute credit as how well he's managing the game. And they have been playing in close games and getting wins, which is something that the team has not been able to do. And so I think that Heineke might put up a good fight here, but I'm going to go with the Vikings. I would not be surprised to see them eventually lose, though, because at some point, as a Vikings fan, for many years, I've seen them fall off the tracks. But I feel like it's one of those teams that you got to pick them till they lose, but it's bound to happen pretty soon. Might not be this week, though. Dolphins, Bears. This might be a close one. I mean, I really like what both quarterbacks are doing right now because Tua has been performing really, really well this season on the record. Tyreek is putting up video game numbers. Might end up easily being the leading receiver in the league. But Justin Fields has also been playing decent last few weeks. He's really built up some steam. So definitely gaining some momentum, which you'd like to see. I think I just have to go with the safe pick here, which is the Dolphins. Even though I think both teams have shown some potential in the last few weeks to be pretty good. I really like what the Dolphins have built. They just traded for Bradley Chubb. I think he's going to play. They just gave him a big extension. I think that will, bring a spark to defense. They got him, Jalen Phillips. They have some pass rush there, which is key to me. If you're going to look to make a playoff push, I like them going out there and getting some edge rush because I think that's actually a reason I like a team like the Bills so much. Or you go back to the Eagles when they won the Super Bowl a few years ago. If you can get rotation going on the defense, specifically at the edge rush position, I think that helps you immensely. Then let's go to the Raiders Jaguars. I like to have a few upsets, and this is one where I am literally 50-50 on who I would pick here. It's a 1-point spread also. And I just don't feel confident in either team. And so that for that reason, because I don't feel confident in the Raiders or the Jaguars, I'm going to pick an upset because I don't feel great in either of them. So I'm going to take maybe what's less likely to happen. I thought maybe that the Jags could pull it off last week in London, but they didn't. And then the Raiders just absolutely skunked it versus the Saints. I mean, terrible. So it's hard to pick either of these teams. I'd say debatably two of the teams I'd have the least confidence in picking against anybody, and they end up going against each other. So you have to pick one. So I'm going to take the upset, but I'm not super confident in that one because I'm not confident in either one of those teams to win a football game. So I'm going to jump to the Chargers Falcons here. But I just don't feel great in the Raiders or the Jaguars to really feel confident in that, but I'm going to take the upset in that case. The Chargers and the Falcons. The Falcons are winning football games, and that it's very interesting because, they're not ever going to light up the scoreboard, but they are getting the job done, and it's debatable. Last week was a controversial ending. The Panthers made a few things happen that if it goes differently, the Panthers win that game, but the Falcons won it. And for the Chargers, Herbert has not been playing up to an MVP level that I think, was expected of him this year. They had a bye week last week. I think they'll bounce back and get a win here. But the Falcons have been sneaky good, so I don't doubt them there. I think this will be a real close game for sure. That one's going to be pretty good. This next one, here's the deal. I was planning on picking the Cardinals the whole time. I've picked the Seahawks quite a bit, and I think they are a very good football team. But I am a proponent of when a team loses a lot of games in a row, I normally think that eventually, at least if they have anything offensively, they're going to bounce back one of those games and get a win. And the Cardinals have been unable to do that in the recent weeks. I picked them a few times and it doesn't work. But I was planning on picking the Cardinals here, and I was expecting this to be an upset with the Lions, especially considering how good the Seahawks have been and Geno is playing. But believe it or not, the Cardinals are favored, I believe, by about 3 points, which to me is actually significant. because I'm surprised that they're even favored in general with the losing streak they kind of had. Geno's playing really well. Honestly, it just comes down to the Cardinals being at home, and I think at one point they have to kind of get out of the funk. I think that Kyler, at least, he made some risky decisions last week, but I think that also potentially at least like showed they can still put something up on the board. So I was planning on picking the Cardinals the whole time. Surprisingly, though, it's not an upset, but I'm going to go with the Cards there. This next game is another one of two teams that I would have expected a better record from, and I picked the Bucks the last 2 weeks to bounce back, and they haven't. And it reminds me of what happened last year. Last year, I was actually a pretty big fan of the Lions going into the season of pulling off some upsets, and they started, with I think it was 0 or 1 wins. And so what ended up happening is they kept getting so close to winning, which they have been this year too, that I thought eventually you have to break the spell. Well, what that ends up doing to my record is kind of shot myself in the foot there, because I'd pick them like 5 weeks in a row, they'd lose by 3 or 7 every week, and that's still a loss. So although I do think eventually they will bounce back, it's actually a safer pick to pick that they're going to lose again, just because otherwise I'm going to pick them that many weeks in a row, and then it finally happens after 5 weeks of picking them instead of waiting. They win, and then I can pick them the next week because I know they're back in momentum. And so that's the counter argument of what I just did with the Cardinals, which is why I'm doing this. I'm going to pick one where I think the team bounces back and one where I am going to take a safer pick, which, believe it or not, I think the safer pick here is the Rams. They are the underdog with Vegas right now. I think that these are two teams that are kind of struggling. I really think the Bucks are going to bounce back at some point, but this is playing it safe here, even though it's not playing it safe. I think the Rams they have more proven commodities on offense with Kupp, that I just unfortunately think that Brady right now is off for whatever reason. I absolutely have faith that he will bounce back, but for the record purposes of this series, I have to go with the Rams here. I think it's the safe choice in this situation. Not going to be fully confident in that, but I think it's the better choice given the choices here. Titans, Chiefs. Titans have a very good record. Reminds me of last year. In the last few years, they've had a few good starts before. But I think I got to go with the Chiefs. They just have enough firepower offensively to get it done. So I'm going to go with them there. I do think that the Titans might get, I think they'll get an opportunity here. But I'm interested to see what Kadarius Toney will look like with the Chiefs still. But I think that overall, the Chiefs have enough firepower to get the job done there. And then the Ravens Saints. Saints obviously do get a big win this past week off of that, but I think that the Ravens do lose Rashad Bateman today. I do need to point that out. They did lose Rashad Bateman. That's a huge loss for them, but I think that the Ravens still are a better football team and can definitely get the win here. I think that that's the best choice I could make here. Saints have been really on-off to me, and so they get a big win last week, but I think that the Ravens are the safe choice here. And score update, you already know the score because there's only 10 minutes left, but just to confirm, the Eagles currently are up 29-17. If they can keep that lead, that would be a great start to the week for us. But those are my picks for Week 9. A little bit of an earlier upload in the week just because I needed to get this out. But I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.